Hello there, my friends. My name is Carl Zipper. I run the Backwoods Engineering programs here at Mount Alamucci Scout Reservation in Byram, New Jersey, located at the scenic crossroads of Morris, Sussex, and Warren counties. With the help of my associate, Mr. Richard Hawkins, I've filmed quite a few videos here all about knots and lashings, and I figured it would be a good idea to do a video where we spoke a little bit about some of the knot tying terms, that I've used that you may or may not be familiar with. So, go from simple to more complex. To start out, this is a rope. Now, most ropes have two ends. Every once in a while you run across one that has no ends, but I've certainly never found a rope that only had one end. When you're tying a knot, odds are you're only working with one end of the rope. And believe it or not, that end of the rope is called the working end. Because it's the end you're working with to tie the knot. The other end of the rope, what folks usually call that is they call that the standing end. So it's just sort of standing around doing nothing. I've also heard folks call it the dead end, which if you're morbid, you might prefer. But so when we tie our rope, we're manipulating the working end, and usually we're, wrapping it around or twisting it through or doing any number of other things to it with relation to the standing end of the rope. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different knots you can tie, but just about all knots have the same basic set of sort of building blocks that you use when you tie them. One of the most common ones is what's called a loop. A loop is very easy. That's just where you take the rope somewhere back a bit from your working end, and you fold it over on itself so you have a little hole here. There's two different types of loop. There's what's called an overhand loop, and there's also what's called an underhand loop. To form an overhand loop, you take your working end and you fold it over your standing end. That's why it's overhand, Take your hand, you fold it over. An underhand loop is exactly the opposite. You take your working end and you fold it under your standing end to form the same loop. Again, let me show you that. Here's your hand, and it goes down under, and you have a loop. So those are loops. Another sort of building block of a lot of knots, you use this especially when you're forming the sheet bend, which is a really useful knot, is what's called a bite. A bite, it looks a lot like a loop, but don't be confused. To form a bite, again, you take some part of the rope, away from the ends. What you do is you just bring it together and fold it so that it's parallel to itself. And what you have up here is you have something that looks an awful lot like a loop up at the top, but it isn't, because the rope, when you folded it to form the bite, it doesn't actually cross itself. It just lays back alongside. Now, sometimes when you're tying a knot, you're going to have to take your rope and you're going to have to wrap it around a spar, or do any other number of things with it in relation to a spar or a pole or some sort of fixed object. One of the common things you do is you form what's called a round turn around the spar with the rope. Now, a round turn, its name basically tells you what it is you take the rope and you go one turn around the spar and you wind up with a round turn. Now, one thing is, there's also what they call a half turn around the rope. This is a half turn. You can see in a half turn, if you have a little bit of wood here, that isn't covered anywhere by the rope. So you make your half turn, and then you keep going to make a round turn. And you see in the round turn, the rope comes all the way, 360 degrees completely around the spar. Another thing that you might be called upon to do sometimes around a spar is something called a half hitch. That's particularly something you're going to do if you do a lot of lashings. When you finish up the lashing at the very end, you're going to make some half hitches around the spar. So to make a half hitch around a spar, what you do, you have your rope, let's hold it parallel to the spar, right? You take your rope with one hand, you hold it out a little bit away from the spar, you have a little bit of gap. Then with the other hand, you take the rope, you wrap it around behind, like you're doing a half turn or a round turn. And then when you keep coming around to the front, you pass it in between the spar and where you're holding the rope away. And this is a half hitch. It's not a knot on its own, but in conjunction with other things, it can become a knot. You know, so the most common, you know, for instance, is if you make your half hitch around the spar, and then you do it again, right above, and you bring the two together, you wind up with a clove hitch around your spar. You know, that's just one example, you know, of how all these different things, you know, are sort of, can be the building blocks to a knot. So I think that's just about all the terminology I want to cover today. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.
All right.
I gotta stop running these by you.
Just say them live, and I can't tell you no. Good.
No, see, now I gotta come up with another one though.
All right, Carl. Whatever you do, don't embarrass us.
That's not gonna be.
Audio, Mark. We still got audio.
That's not gonna be any fun, Rich. If I can't embarrass you.
Fine.